Hello there and welcome to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. We are all about using technology to solve everyday problems. And, of course, your host is none other than Mr. Iyer himself, an expert in all things SaaS and the digital world.
Welcome to the next episode of the Fractional series. And today we are going to speak to a Fractional Chief Marketing Officer.
Hello everyone, welcome to our Fractional series where we explore innovative business strategies with industry leaders. Today we have the pleasure of introducing Charleh, a true powerhouse in the world of marketing and business growth. Charleh is not just your average marketing expert, she's an award-winning young entrepreneur and an experienced fractional CMO who has made waves in the SaaS, fintech, engineering, and manufacturing sectors. With a proven marketing system that has delivered success time and time again, Charleh is the go-to strategist for the business looking to break through plateaus and scale amid all the chaos. So welcome, Charleh, to the podcast. It's fantastic to have you on the show. So as a fractional CMO at KUB Digital, you bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to business and looking to scale. So thank you very much for doing this.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Okay. So how was your day today, Charleh? How do you typically begin your day? It must be very early for you.
It is. Well, I started work a couple hours ago. So because I'm very much split over Europe and the US, so I'm calling in from New York today. But you can tell by my accent, I'm from Manchester in the UK. So obviously that's where all my networks are. I actually shameably am a little bit of the anti is not the right word, but I don't traditionally set my day up like the gurus would expect. And also, which is kind of, and I only say it's very juxtaposed to actually how I run my life, which is a bit of a weird sentence. But I'm very much maximizing my sleep as much as possible. So when I get up, it's a case of getting up, getting washed, getting dressed and everything. And then I'm diving straight into meetings from 7:30. And the reason for that is why I don't, maybe spend time relaxing or chilling or meditating before work is because I task block all of my meetings very, very early on in the morning. So I finish all my meetings by 11 and then there's no meetings for the rest of the day. And that's why I've found I much prefer to go for like a walk at lunchtime. And that's when I'll do kind of my meditation, my slower paced time to then do creative doing work for the rest of the day. So it's slightly different what people kind of recommend, but it works for me.
Yeah, I think so. I believe that whatever works for you, you should do that. Everybody has a different situation around them, so it is important to have your structure the way you feel is right for you and which works for you. I agree with you completely on that. So, how has been your transition from Manchester to US? Tell me about it. I love Manchester. I've been there. Beautiful place. So, what brings you to?
Yeah, I always say Manchester is it's creative. We have it's my favorite thing about Manchester is no matter what you identify as, no matter what your ideology is, no matter what your background is, your lifestyle is, it is so warm and welcoming as a culture that you can dress and behave with it. You can just be anybody you want to be, but the one thing you can't be is a bad person. There is almost a rule of etiquette, like where you're just like, no, we don't do that behavior here. We will accept you for who you are. We'll only bring positivity to this place. And I love it. Yeah, interesting. I've just always had that itch in me, whereas it's like I need to travel abroad or I need to be in a different country. For a variety of reasons, it just never happened. And it was very post-COVID, having been locked in a very small apartment block for a solid 18 months. When that died down, I was like, I'm going to start traveling. So I went nomadic first. I went to live lots of places in Europe, and then I spent the majority of time in Mallorca, in Palma, hanging out there. So I always had I dipped my toe in first before kind of doing a bigger move over to the US. And then through all of that, this nomadic period, I actually met my husband, and then we got married. He transferred over to the New York office, and it was like the universe just aligned for us.
Right.
In he's always wanted to travel, but for a variety of reasons, he was never able to travel. And we both came together and we're just like, we both want to do this. This is dead easy. And it's been, I would say it was been a big of adjustment period, but not on the stuff I expected. I thought business would be a lot harder. That was actually really straightforward, because if you've dipped your toe in a little bit, you've solved
Yeah.
all of the slightly different challenges already. That was dead easy. It's more, I never appreciated how broad my accent, how thick my accent is. And that's been the biggest adjustment period.
Okay, excellent. So you spoke briefly about work. You said it's quite straightforward. Let's know about what work do you do? What do you do for your, on your day-to-day basis? And you've been an award-winning marketer, and let's try and understand more about that so my audience know what you do.
Yeah, there's three things I do for a business. I help them create robust new revenue sales funnels, so bringing new revenue into the business, new leads into the business. I stop the churn of clients coming in and out the door like a revolving door. Like, if you're getting all this new business, we want them to stay and be sticky. And then the third thing I do is I help them create a dream team, a dream marketing team, because it's all very good having new business coming in and the clients staying sticky, but actually business is about people, and you've got to have the right
Yeah.
people to really reduce headaches and really to scale and grow. And that's it. They're the three things that I do, because they're the three major constraints that will stop a business from growing and scaling. And ultimately, that's what I always want to be delivering for a business.
Excellent, excellent. You are a fractional CMO, right? And how is it being different from being a normal CMO to a fractional CMO? What is the difference? How does it, why somebody should hire a fractional CMO?
Yeah, well, let's break it down. What is the definition? What is the principles of a CMO? Your CMO is there to manage all of the marketing activities, if we want to really streamline that sentence. And that then can involve either managing your team, managing your department, or, managing your vendors or suppliers, or however your business is structured. Now, I specialize in the small business world, everything from 1 million up to 40 million, but my sweet spot's that 1 to 10.
Okay.
And the difference is, when you're in that 1 to 10 bracket, so it's a weird position to be in, because you need an FCMO in the business, because there is a lot of high level information and experience and skills that you need. You don't necessarily need them full time, because that's quite expensive and costly to the business. And you can fall in the trap of not enough doing work, because you've only got a finite amount of resources. And as a small business, 80% of everything you're doing, 80% of your marketing should just be doing it. We're not looking for perfection here. Action makes results at the end of the day. So the benefits then is, if you've got a fractional CMO, is you've got this ton of experience and direction and leadership and skill, but a lot of your resources are still on the doing. And you then get this like perfect combination of drive. And then when you get to the 10, 40, then you get to like let's say the 40 million mark. Then you might want to consider having that leader all the time, because at 40 million, you've probably got a very core marketing department, and that then becomes a full-time role. So really, for that small business world, it's been a huge game changer, because now that they've got access to skills that a larger organization would have full time, and now the smaller businesses can really take on those larger companies and be competitors to them.
Excellent. I think so. It makes sense to go with the fractional when you're in that bracket range of clients you're managing, instead of burning very high cost on a full-time CMO. Fractional CMO works brilliant. Tell me about KUB Digital, more about, because that's where your heart is. I know we have spoken before in length about it. So tell me about it.
Yeah, so the story of KUB is an acronym, and it does stand for Knowledge Underpinning Business. And it's the really it's a very, very deep-seated core value that I will sit with you all day and knowledge share with you. It's like, if you really want to take the time, investment, and effort to really learn marketing so you can make more informed decisions, I will spend all day with you and show you the tools and techniques and resources. And I appreciate not every CEO can have that luxury when they are in that chaotic small business world where they just have to get things done and trust that you've got that knowledge to do. So it's always a balance, but it's really that core. But if you want to know the real story behind where that name came from, KUB was set up by my dad in the early 90s, and it's a really cool story for me because it's like I was there from day one of KUB as a little child, and my very first job in KUB was to fold the letters, to stamp the letters, and then walk down the street to post them in the post office. So this was direct mail in the 90s, and that's how the business got started. So my dad is a business coach and marketing strategist. And what happens when it's like a family business is, me growing up as my dad was going out and getting clients, was I was either doing the admin, I was either doing the business cards, I was doing the website, the flyers, I was either on, at one point we were selling books on a conference stand. You know, I was pulled into all of these different disciplines of marketing. Almost did my marketing internship by the time I was 16, essentially, because I was asking to do these things, for my dad. He always wanted it to be a business for him as a consultant. Then that obviously transpired when I got to 21. I was like, right, I want to start a marketing agency. So we actually ran the business coaching and the marketing agency separate for quite a number of years, because ethically, you always want to keep business coaching very separate and unbiased. Yeah. And so that was a very, very conscious decision. My dad is of retirement age, and he didn't want to do the business coaching anymore. So we retired the business coaching. We kept a lot of the core knowledge and principles from all of that years of experience to drive into sales and marketing. Hence why it fits so neatly into the fractional CMO angle. The agency turned into the fractional CMO, and now my dad runs our other business, which is called Vision, where we have developed an app which helps small businesses to do incredibly long, lengthy marketing strategy and brand messaging and positioning. And we're able to, something that takes three months usually end to end, we're getting that down to 3 hours. And that's really where he's now taking that business and that venture. So he's got a new lease of life doing something else. And I run the ship in KUB.
Okay. That sounds fun. So when you talk about fun, I love your tagline. It says, let's make growing business fun. So how do you inject fun into the often stressful business growth process?
Yeah, let me give you the background story behind that core tagline, and then I'll go into the weeds and the details.
Sure.
And so the whole strapline comes from your energy flow. People say business is hard, or business is hard work. And it's like, yes it is. But if you have ever met an entrepreneur or business owner who is completely 100% obsessed with their business or their product, and you can just, the passion just oozes out of them. Yes, they're probably working 16 hours a day, but they will say that it flies by because they're having fun. They are really deeply invested in it. The core principle I say, like, let's make growing businesses fun, it comes from that. And I really learned this and recognized this from my sporting career. So I had let's say it's a failure, what it is. So I was brought up like I was always going to go to the Olympics. Going to the Olympics was my dream, and it's very timely that Paris Olympics is just about to start. So I always wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, and there was a group of us girls, 4 of us girls. We, national titles, British titles. We were just like getting all of those top spots, and I don't know, I got to that kind of teenage years and just had this like mental block of just thinking, I don't know, I was really falling out of love of swimming. To cut a long story short, all those girls went on to the Commonwealth, the Olympics, to medal and basically go on to do that dream. And I think what from reflection, I recognize is that they really loved swimming. And I didn't. I was just good at it, so I did it because I was good at it. I didn't love it. I still don't swim to this day. Well, I do. I swim once a year, and that's my quota. And that's when I really learned the difference between the 0.2% and the 1%, and then the 10% and the 15% of an industry, of a business, of how some
Right.
people succeed and don't succeed. And so that really, really resonated with me when I'm going into helping and growing businesses, in that we've got to look at a business owner and we've got to look at your team and go, how can everybody in the team be in complete energy green flow state, so that they are completely obsessed at trying to be better, the role and responsibility that they're at. And if you've got that as let's say 10 people all in this space coming together, you're going to do, no matter what, you're going to do better marketing and sales behind it. And so it really fits into my objective of finding your A team to stop the churn of clients, to then building new revenue, and it all waterfalls together.
Brilliant. That's excellent. So in the intro, I did mention about you touching different industries like SaaS, AI. So tell me, how do you tailor your marketing strategy to meet the unique each sector? How do you tailor yourself? Is it tough? How do you manage that?
No, it's a very conscious reason. So engineering, manufacturing, and SaaS, they're my core industry. And yes, you could say that that's quite broad, but it's not. Obviously, there's a little bit of that's where majority of my experience has been in, and the companies they've worked for. But as a business owner personalities trait, they are very the same people. I'll focus a little bit on the manufacturing and particularly engineering. If you've ever met an engineer, they are excellent problem solvers. Now, I'm married to an engineer, so and my dad is both my dad and husband are both civil engineers as like their first industry before getting into tech. So I know that's my comfort zone on how to work and build relationships with that type of person, because I love it. Obviously, I surround myself by it. And it's because they're problem solvers and they are always looking for a challenge to overcome. And that's the mindset I really get on board with. So I have a lot of solutions as well. And working together means we can be very collaborative. So then when we look at it as a sector, as a strategy, the other trait that they typically have, because they're problem solvers, they tend to like to be obsessed with the product and like, how can they keep making the product amazing and how can they keep developing it further? Well, that you can have an amazing product, but if you don't have an amazing distribution of that product, then you don't really have a product at all. So therefore, I'm very complementary with my skills because I'm obsessed with how can we make the distribution as incredible as possible. So as a combination, it works beautifully as a partnership. And when people are naturally obsessed with making the product amazing, they can come up with very technical language and be so focused on it. So then when I get to my brand messaging, my messaging process, I actually drill it down to what is the core challenge or core problem or core task, I should say, of what their customer is trying to solve. I'll give you an example. I do a title search SaaS platform, and their core customer, so real estate entities, all they're trying to do is they're trying to get through all the government and legal documents that are required in order to close properties. So title search is only one small cog in that big machine. Their core problem or challenge is just being able to see where all of their projects are at the moment and making sure that they are coming in as accurately as possible. So then it's streamlined for them to close that property. For you want to have delivered to them excellent customer service and then also give them full transparency on where that title search is up to so that they can coordinate all the cogs to the end. Okay?
Correct.
So we've really broken it all, this could be quite complex, strip all the noise out and get to just the core of it. Suddenly
Right.
now, most real estate entities struggle to get complex title searches over the line. Well, we deliver full transparency so you can watch your title search come in at the right time and give you streamless experience. No, that's not actually their core message. That's just, I've just learned, right, that's their core problem. We're solving the core problem. I'm firing it back
Right.
at them to say who we speak to very specifically in what to do. And you repeat that process. You can repeat it with any technical subject or technical language by just getting really simple with your phrasing and wording.
Excellent. Excellent. You did touch upon a few things which you do for the SaaS companies. I want to understand: is there any key metrics, focus on to ensure your marketing strategy is effective and it is aligned with the company's objective? Because you do multiple clients, so how do you have key metrics and those marketing strategy aligned for those specific companies' growth objectives?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of two answers. There's two answers to this. If you people understand RACI, you'll have key people in your team who needs to be responsible for certain metrics. So the CEO, they will have the most top level metrics. They'll have those big ass numbers like revenue, churn. One of the stuff is the cash flow. I have a nice dashboard that does all this for me these days. Me as the marketing, I need to get a little bit more granular on that. And that I'll have the overview metrics for each channel. So I might have, what is the increase? How many leads do we have in the newsletter? How many sessions do we have on the website? How many conversions do we have? How many revenues do we have? That means an FCMO. Now, then if we drill it down and then it goes down again, the SEO person, well, they're going to have a different report that's bigger, more comprehensive and detailed and deep dive for them that they need to be responsible for. And so that's one end of it, is like knowing who in your team's responsible for which metrics and how do they get to the top if there's a big major problem that needs to be fixed. The second one, if you're a smaller business and you don't have the luxury of lots of people, is I always say first map out the customer journey and all of the different touch points. That's kind of number one. But what it always then boils down to is number one absolute rule is how much new revenue is coming in and how many new leads are coming in. I'd say if you really wanted to cut the noise out and you just wanted to focus on one metric, that one, because that is your lifeline metric. Because if you haven't got it, you haven't got the room to fix any other challenges further down the line. So if you've got no new revenue coming in and you've got a high churn rate of clients bouncing in and out, well, then you have no money to go and fix this challenge here. Now, if you've got high revenue, new clients coming in and still got this high churn rate, well, you've got enough money to go fix the second problem over here. And so I would say that's paramount. It's just that you just got to increase that as much as humanly possible. When you're at that position, that will help you. This is how I always phrase it. That will help you survive another day and in the infinite game of business. Because there is no end point to business. You just have to survive 24 hours and 24 hours after that, and 24 hours after that, and 24 hours.
Brilliant. These are excellent tips for the listeners. I know you work with teams, right? And building a dream team in marketing, managing a marketing is amazing. It's very important and very key. So what qualities do you look for in building your team, your marketing team? If you have to build a marketing team for a client and you have to manage them, what is the qualities do you look for?
First and foremost, I will say it is one of the hardest things to do. It is definitely one of the hardest things I do out of all of this. And that's including like the doing work. Give you something really technical or creative. No, building the right team is definitely the hardest part. It always comes down to attitude, really, really attitude. And I've spoken to way more experienced people than myself when it comes to leadership and culture and people, and I've absorbed this from them as well, that if you've got two candidates and you've got one person who ticks all of the project brief on all of the skill sets, but they are not a culture fit or they don't have the right attitude, they're going to be very challenging to work with and they'll cause more headaches.
Yeah.
And I could elaborate that a lot further. Then this is opposing to somebody who they only might have half the skill sets that you're looking for, but they might be very eager to be learned, they might be very self-starting to go and find the information and have that drive to continuously get better.
Right.
They will ultimately, at the end of the day, overtake that other person because they have that mindset to continuously keep pushing themselves to be better all the time. And also we have that, and we also have that other element of small businesses change so quickly and fast that actually if you've got somebody with a mindset who's so keen to learn, they're a far easier person to pivot to what changes that you might have in that business, and rather than the other person who's kind of a little bit more like stuck in their ways and they just want to kind of sit in their own box. And that's the two difference. So that's kind of the big first indicator. And the second is having a level of self-awareness of yourself and understanding what culture you want in your business, culture you want to create. And it boils down to two. Do you want a competitive culture or do you want a collaborative culture? Now, neither is better, worse, or worse than the other, but no matter what they say. It's understanding what you enjoy. So, for example, the teams I like to work in and the teams I like to create are collaborative teams who will help each other to excel and get better. So they'll spend time together as people to skill swap or do projects together to go for a common goal. Great, that's the teams I like to have. The competitive one is where you may have like leaderboards or gamification on who can do the best, who can do the best sales. I'm using the sales guys as an example because they like this more. It's that competitiveness where they're not going to share their data lists with each other. They're just going to come to the end of the month and go, cool, I'm employee of the month and I need a gold star and look at me, guys. And that's fine because some people thrive from that environment where they need that level of competitiveness to give them a drive, to eagerness to get better.
Right.
So that's why I say there's none about, it's just having a self-awareness to know what works for you, and this points into, building that team. If you've got a competitive person, I want to slightly rephrase that because I'm competitive but collaborative. If you've got a competitive and they're in the singular lone wolf kind of angle and you put them in a collaborative environment, they then become a toxic employee and they will cause so much more headaches to your business that it will drag it down. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's just the wrong person in the wrong seat, and actually they'll do better in a different organization.
So AI is the buzzword, right? Now there are rapid changes in the digital marketing landscape. How do you stay updated with the latest technologies and trends? And are there anything game-changing happening in digital marketing space with AI in business?
It's a good question because obviously your question is, how do you stay up to date with the latest trends? I'm not going to lie, before AI, there is so much you have to stay up to date with in marketing. What is the latest algorithm change on social media? What's the latest algorithm changes on Google? What's the best form of practices to be doing in each of the different channels? So having that mindset to be on the ball of continuously learning, well, that bit's not changed. Just happens to be a different subject now. You have to be on top of. What are the things that we're kind of looking for? Well, principally when I'm looking at things in AI, I actually use quite an old rule to the task that I'm doing and what is non-valuable to the task that I'm doing. This is actually an operational tactic. Because give you an example, a really simple example with ChatGPT. There's been so much discussion about it and how you write blog articles, for example. Well, you gotta understand the core laws behind the ChatGPT, that if you ask it to do a language, it will always go to the mean of the language. But the mean isn't always the best output that you want to get back from that stimulus, from that thing. And so when you're asking it to write a whole blog article, it is going to be very generic, and it is going to be like the mean average, but it's do the objective of you're trying to be a thought leader through the copy and the content of your writing. Okay, so let's break the process down further. Okay, you will have as a person, have a huge amount of knowledge about your subject if you just live and breathe and are obsessed with it, with your subject. Okay, well, if you sit there and write 200, 300 words of word vomit, so when I say word vomit, it's not grammatically correct, it's just spew knowledge that comes out of your brain, or it can even just be bullet points. Right, okay, now you have a far more directional of core content that you can be inputting into ChatGPT to be refining the copy and the content. And I can go further and further in how you can actually get better outputs in ChatGPT by having just a little bit more knowledge on what the language style you want to be using, what frameworks you want to be using, what titles you want to be researching from SEO. And then things like ChatGPT, I know I'm using that as a basic language, the basic AI, because the one everybody recognizes. Just by inputting more specific knowledge and research into it, you're gonna have a better output. The non-valuable time is, we used to hire full-time editors to edit blog articles, to grammar check. That's one person's wage. Now ChatGPT can do that in 30 seconds. That is a non-valuable time that is not going to affect the quality of the output coming out, but it's going to improve the overall placement of that content that we now do in 30 seconds, if that.
You could do a masterclass on this. You should create a masterclass on using ChatGPT for marketing and just sell it. You do a great, fantastic one.
You could go. That's what I'm saying. AI is such a broad subject, because the clients that are my clients that are delivering AI SaaS products, the stuff they're doing is phenomenal. I'll give you one example of really the big massive changes. We've got a workforce compliance platform, and the process of compliance in the UK for the construction industry, it's a mixture between digital and analog. It's just like everything is a little bit everywhere, and you've got a poor compliance person trying to manage all of these different literally paperwork as well as digital files for thousands of people. I do not envy them as a job. And then with this platform, all they're doing, because of revolution in the technology, they're now digitizing the whole process. So they got full visibility of all of that information. The AI is not really the important thing there. Obviously, it's great, it's wonderful, but the core principle is it's all digitized. And so that's why I say AI is a very broad subject, because I'm never going to use that.
Excellent. I have last couple of small questions. One is, what advice would you give to business who are considering working with a fractional CMO?
It's a good question, because fractional CMO is still new, and when you have anything that is very new and in its infancy stage, the modeling of what it is can look very different from person to person. I know I set myself up a little bit more different because of my background of being more of an agency owner, necessarily coming out from a corporate world to becoming into a fractionals, two different routes here. And it always boils down to, okay, what do you really need in your business? Of where are those gaps in your resources that's going to be stopping you from going forward? So, and I'll give you a prime example. Say you worked with a more corporate FCMO, they're going to be so used to big corporate systems and infrastructures that they are going to be very, very, very good at strategic leadership and direction and vision and things. But if you get somebody who's from a corporate fractional CMO, and they're not going to understand the absolute chaos that goes into smaller businesses. and what are the needs that you need there. So I go down into, because I'm more with, my world only knows that 1 to 10 million size business, and understand what that chaos looks like and how to put some order in place. I am far more happier to get into the details of things. Like if a website page just needs quickly editing and updating, it'll take me 2 seconds to do, so I'll do it, which is not traditionally a fractional CMO's job. But the benefit for the small business is that they can get across the line quicker. And so it allows the web developer to actually focus on the bigger projects that they need their attention on to move the needle further. So it's understanding, having a self-awareness of their business. I think that's the core number one before they go out and approach different levels of fractional CMO, because then you'll have far better conversations when you're talking to a variety of CMOs and what works best for them.
Excellent. And on that note, thank you very much. I just have one thing. If the listeners want to reach out to you, how do they reach out to you? Where are you there? On what social media platform? And
Yeah, absolutely. It's the classic one. You can get me on LinkedIn at Charleh Knighton. We obviously met through my podcast,
Yes.
which is called Charleh with Friends, which you can get on Spotify, you can get on TikTok, you can get it on Instagram, and you can connect with me and reach out to me on there. And then my URL for the website, I do have a few websites because I do have a few businesses, but the main one for the fractional is KUB, so KU-digital.io. That's where you can get me at.
Excellent. Appreciate you doing this, Charlie. Thank you very much. And I'm sure the listeners will take a lot of information out of it, and I'm sure they will reach out to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on this episode of Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. Before we close out today's episode, a quick reminder to all our listeners. If you found value in today's insights and discussions, be sure to subscribe to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other leading podcast platforms. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with the latest episodes and continue to delve deep into the ever-evolving world of digital dynamics with Mr. Iyer. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to having you join us for our next episode. Until then, keep the dialogue going and keep pushing the boundaries of digital innovation. Farewell, and stay curious.